The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hippo Toad.
Scary dog!
Pearson and Blurnsball.
Futurama!
Good evening and welcome to Issues Today. I'm your host, Mark Radulich, and tonight we'll be discussing the tariff war going on between Canada and the United States. Forgot where I was for a moment. I just came from my parents' house and there was a lengthy discussion about that.
No, your dad. No, your dad wouldn't have anything to say about that.
It started with a TikTok and it went downhill from there. Speaking of TikToks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premier podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is Cobra Kai, Season 6. And this is it. This is the last review for the Cobra Kai show. We're in its final season. It debuted in 3 parts over the past couple of months. We're going to review it all for you tonight. And joining me, as he has for almost every season of this, Zabka is my sensei, he of the funny name from the tri-state area, Brooklyn's own. Hey, Joey! It's Pat Mullen. How you doing, sir?
Where's my gabba go? Oh!
Hey, what's going on here?
Firstly, thank you to all you guys for being flexible with the scheduling tonight. I really appreciate it. That was huge by all you guys. Andrew, David, thank you for being so cool about it. Yeah, I had to be here for this, man. It's the end of the show that I've done pretty much every season of almost here. And lots to say, lots to reminisce. Yeah, I needed this.
We would not have done it without you. Also, coming in, you can't see his pretty face, and we miss it. But that's all right. We're glad he's here anyway. David's daughter. How you doing, David's daughter?
Oh, Sensei is running around the pen right now, but where she's sizing me up. I can tell you one thing's for sure. If there is a diaper change tonight, we are going to see like a really good ground game.
And calling in from the Sakai Takai in his house, David Wright. How you doing, man?
I'm doing it. Didn't I just talk?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't see the screen here, but I'm good. Actually, just off the bat, just one thing that's been bothering me like for the past 2 seasons. Why don't they just say World Tournament? Because that's exactly what Sekai Taikai means.
All right, we'll get to it. And there was your chance to interact with me. My feelings are now hurt. Moving on. Coming in from Canada with his own tumultuous family issues going on, but he made it here anyway. He slid into home base. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Graham, how do you do, sir?
I'm doing good, everybody, and we have put down the rebellion for the time being. We'll see if that holds or not. So we're having Dave and I are both having some childlike uprisings right now.
Yeah, well, maybe we can make it thematic for when we do Andor season 2.
My children ran away from me tonight. They were like, "Good luck and God bless," and and there were Lily and Jonas' holes through the front door as they went running from the car.
Yeah, part of me is dreading having teenagers. The other part of me is like, oh, thank God, they don't want to be around me anymore.
Yeah.
Dave, I'll answer one question for you right now. The same reason they call it Sakai Taikai as opposed to World Championship is the same reason that people have posters of Bruce Lee in their rooms that actually have quotes that aren't actually from Bruce Lee.
Oh, like the Tao Te Ching?
Well, more like this one right behind me.
Yeah, again.
All right, let's get into the show here. What can one say to start off? This show kind of takes a cheeky idea that Daniel was the bully, not Johnny, and it kind of plays with that. For the previous 5 seasons, we've seen Johnny on a journey of self-discovery, a journey of redemption. which was largely successful. And I remember saying last season that I don't know how much more juice they can squeeze out of this or how much more he's supposed to change. But the more I thought about it, the more I also thought that this was also Daniel's arc of self-discovery, journey of self-discovery, as he was very almost religiously committed to the teachings of Mr. Miyagi, and he comes to, over the course of 6 seasons, realize there's more than one way to skin a cat. He has become more open, less rigid, more accepting, which is not odd, but an interesting take on the character. But also one where I wasn't quite sure where they were going to go this season. This season revolved around the Sekai Takai, as was mentioned earlier. This is a worldwide karate tournament. And after dealing with Kreese and dealing with Silver, I wasn't quite sure how they were going to handle this. Let's start there. Pat, I'll go to you first. What were your expectations of, just in terms of villains and obstacles, with this Sekai Takai tournament? What were you expecting, hoping for, praying they wouldn't do, etc.?
I didn't think we would get as much Terry as we did, to be honest. I think we all knew how flimsy the whole him getting arrested at the end of season 5 was, with no evidence in actual crime committed.
After he was defending his home from illegal breaking and entry and assault.
It is amazing the amount of breaking and entering that goes on in 6 seasons of this show. All the felonies that are committed.
I don't think rigging. I don't think rigging a karate tournament counts as a felony.
Again, the flip testimony of Stingray.
Actually, that was on point.
Well, yeah.
I'm kind of happy and shocked that it was a Paul Walter Hauser.
Yeah.
That he keeps on coming back, because he's really kind of grown a really decent career since
Golden Globe winning actor.
Yep. As opposed to just playing martial arts weirdos like he does on this in Kingdom.
Jimmy. Oh, that was a different one. But yeah, I didn't expect as much of him as we got. I definitely expected the Kreese presence, what we saw. The Kreese redemption took me by surprise. And maybe it shouldn't have, but to the level that it got to, it did. Getting into specifics where, Johnny has probably his greatest acting scene in the show, when he finally confronts Kreese about all those years in the torment and that one real betrayal, what it did to his life for years. Yeah. And all he could do is say, "I'm sorry, son," and cry. And, I'm always worried when they try to make a villain more humane. Some people need to be evil for the sake of evil, but at least that's what they had Silver for here, if for nothing else. The idea that, okay, I've lost this, I've lost Cobra Kai, I'm just going to go buy another dojo kind of defeats the whole purpose of his legacy continuing on after his death, so I didn't really love that part of it and how they got that intertwined. There was probably another workaround to that. That just seemed kind of cheap and shortcutty, which isn't really what this show is about. The show's been about playing the long game, basically from its inception.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit disappointed with that choice, but still, I think what we got started poorly, evolved well, and finished in a way that would satisfy the audience as a whole. Yeah. And I'll point particularly to the final Kreese and Silver scene on the boat, which is grandiose and ridiculous, but it's what we've come to expect in a very positive, fun way. And to see them both go out that way, I like the idea of two eternal enemies fighting till the end of time together, stuck in that loop. And that's kind of what we got with them, with their imminent explosive deaths. And we imagine they're still doing the same thing in the afterlife.
It was very Frodo and Smeagol right there at the end. They just went into the lava together.
David. It gave me very much Hound and Mountain vibes from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So, David, the question I put to you is, what were your expectations going into this? Were they largely met? Did you have some thoughts about where the show might go, and it didn't go in that direction? Give me some of your thoughts here.
Yeah, well, I was expecting like it would be more like Miyagi-Do / Eagle Fang merged together, fighting against the Korean Cobra Kai group at the Sekai Taikai, and that would kind of be mostly it. Which there was some of that, but Like I kind of thought that the season kind of started as a good like first couple of episodes, just sort of resolving most of the leftover drama from the previous seasons. You had
Mhm.
Tori and Sam sort of working out a friendship. You had blanking on the kid's name right now.
Anthony and Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny. Thank you. Yeah, having Kenny kind of coming into the fold, and then Johnny and Daniel, putting aside their differences and working together again.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, and then it was just kind of when they got to the Sekai Taika, it was just so much teenage drama with more punching and kicking, and I was just kind of like, I'm done. Like if they just ended it with like the dojos are merged, the piece has been made, I'd have been like, that would have been the point that I would have ended the show. Just maybe do 2 more episodes in the previous season, and that's it. I'm good. Then they did the captain's battle with the Iron Dragons, I think it was.
Yeah.
Where you just realize, like, holy shit, there is a dojo that is like even more powerful than both of these guys, and that just kind of upended the table. And then they got into like Silver's behind it all, and so I was kind of up and down to that middle part, and then kind of when they eventually got through to the end, where you sort of have the rebirth of Cobra Kai under Johnny and the sort of dojo splintering, but in a mutually beneficial way. That kind of that was more when I was on the edge of my seat, where it's like, okay, now I'm interested in these fights, I'm interested in this development, and like and the show's name is Cobra Kai, so I was kind of happy that they brought back the dojo at the end.
Yeah.
So it kind of turned into just like Miyagi-Do runs everything, except Daniel's a sanctimonious asshole about it.
That was a huge problem I had with the show, actually. Let me go over to you, Andrew, and then we can kind of mix it up. A lot of stuff has been covered that I want to go back and talk about a little bit more at length. But your expectations, where you landed with the show by the end, same thing as the other guys.
I'm not 100% sure what my expectations were for the last season. I mean, we knew the Sekai Taikai was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Expected a lot more returns from Silver, from Kreese, things like that. Probably some resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
I would say overall the way they actually ended this was that they nailed it. It was an incredibly satisfying ending in terms of a lot of the story arcs that they wrapped up. I think you had a lot of catharsis, a lot of closure, and some damn good karate.
Yeah. So one of the things I was struggling with in the beginning, and I was mentioning this, I think to Alexis earlier in the week. I said, I'm trying to not get myself too upset when I see a development in a show that I don't like, as long as narratively it makes sense. But it bothers me. I'm kind of willing to take a deep breath and go, be an adult. This might pay off later. There's a journey that has to be gone on here. Don't get all weirdo, Star Wars weirdo. Oh no, what have you done to Luke Skywalker about it? So
one thing that helps me out a lot with that is I always remember everything goes according to plan is not an interesting story. So I expect things to never go according to plan, and that pretty much helps out. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, they did not. The guy did not manage to phone the girl on the phone and explain to her why he was with the other girl, and it was totally innocent. But no, that would be way too logical and realistic,
right,
and boring.
So I was thinking more along the lines of the way things start with the season. Johnny immediately gives up and kind of relents to Daniel about like we'll all just be Miyagi-Do. And part of my issue with that, and we can kick this around a bit for discussion, is I felt like they'd already resolved this. They had. I'm fine with the way the show ended. I think the show has a very satisfying ending. So everything I'm about to say, I say with the full knowledge that by the end of it, I was okay with it. But it had to do some work to get me there, because where we're starting felt like a repeat, Pat, of the same beats from the previous 2 seasons of there's more than one way to do things. You're right. There's more than one way to do things. Your way is not always the right way, but your way is also valid. We agree on this. Great.
Now let's do everything my way.
Yeah, and
exactly.
And there are certain shows with poor writing where we resolve everything by the end of the season, and then the next season picks up, or the next movie starts, and we forgot everything we learned in the previous installment. And that was kind of the way this felt for me in the beginning, Pat.
Yeah, I agree with that. Probably best exemplified by when they're trying to decide the Sekai Taikai captains, and Tori and Sam are getting into their fight, and Tori's determined, I'm going to fight, even though we find out Daniel and, the crew just found out her mom had passed. They didn't know until that moment when, somehow Amanda gets contacted. I don't know why she would be the
address that in a
contact.
minute. I have to address that, but keep going.
Yeah, I don't know why she would be the contact and just get the call, but whatever, that's fine. And again, you get the heated argument of she's not in a position to be fighting right now, and from Daniel and Johnny, she's working through it. That's how she's handling it.
Right.
And again, just getting back to that age-old, it's my way is the way to do it. She's not there. No, this is how she works through it. Everything's different for everybody. The first 5 episodes they dropped were really like, I don't know if I'm going to love this season for me. And that's probably the biggest outlier of why, because it was rehashing that same stuff over again.
Okay. I want to quick touch on Dave, the bit with Tori there, because the setup is her mom has died. She's kind of, leaning into it emotionally. She's, fighting with a lot of anger and frustration and trauma. And and then you have the fight between Danny and Johnny about should we or should we not let her fight, and ultimately she ends up not fighting, and then she goes and joins Cobra Kai. But also, where have I heard this before? And I will say this: at least the show addressed it. It's like, how many more times is she going to turn her back on us? Exactly. How many more times is she going to turn her back on us and go to Cobra Kai? At least the 3rd time. So I just, I think when I was watching it, where I came down was I was annoyed they had the fight in the first place. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. Unless you're Vince McMahon and you've dropped a wrestler off the roof, they wouldn't have let her fight. There's no fucking way they let her fight. Like, everything stops. Your mom is in the hospital or dead or whatever the hell it was. We're all stopping this. We're all going to go back to, dealing with this issue, and we'll resume this later. We'll have it fight another day. And it was one of those, to one degree or another, some very large degrees or another, the show does some really silly things that in real life that would never happen. Not the least of which is a giant home invasion, but I repeat myself. So I wanted to know what you thought, Dave, of how they handled the Tori mom thing.
I get the points behind each side. You have, Daniel, who's, more, shall we say, upper class. So they're a lot more touchy-feely, and that's kind of also Miyagi-Do in essence. Whereas, Johnny, he's like, he's from the streets. So he kind of comes at it from a bit more like, no, we don't sit here and talk things out. You go and you hit something really hard until the anger goes away. And now the fact that they had this discussion in like about 10 seconds right in front of everybody on the mat was a bit like, no, this is, you pause everything, you go inside, you talk it out, you work things out, and then you go back with your decision. That's how real people in the real world do these things.
Yeah.
It
definitely has an element of, we're going to write everyone slightly stupid or there won't be a show.
Yeah, I mean, this show gets away with a lot just because most of the cast are teenagers, so a lot of the bad decision making can be explained by dumb teenagers.
Is it stupid or is it karate?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. But I mean, like, Johnny and Daniel, they're both kind of hot-headed, and that's always been kind of like Daniel's big problem is, he's hot-headed mixed up with a bit of like that, like I say, that sanctimonious streak. He kind of feels like, he always knows best. He's the good guy this whole, all along, and that kind of, that makes problems for him when Johnny's just, he's got his own view on things, and he's like, look, I grew up in the same world that this girl did. I know what she's going through. Like you said, when my mom died, all I wanted to do was hit the mat. And it's kind of a shame that they never really, reconciled that even at the Sekai Taikai. But one thing I would say that you talked about, where the whole, she's back with Cobra Kai now. She's not, they're enemies, they're friends. At least this time when she flipped back to Cobra Kai, the reaction from everyone was not like, oh, you're a bad egg, you've always been bad, and you're showing your true colors. It's like, again, it was like Sam was just like, I wish you had told me. I wish that I could have been there for you and helped you through this. Same thing with Robbie.
I think later on they actually say to her, like, we support your decision. We understand what you're doing, and may the best person win. And I was like, what a wonderful bit of writing here. Go ahead, Andrew.
I definitely have a couple of thoughts on this one. first things first, I gotta say probably one of the highlights of this show, and somebody who I think Mark you referenced from her time on Hey Jesse, but man, Peyton List has got some acting game. Like she really carries that character off so well.
This show did Peyton List all kinds of favors. Like I actually see some pretty big things for her. It is one of the few instances I've seen of somebody break the Disney shackles without having to show their tits on screen. So good for her. Keep going.
Yeah. The look on her face. Sorry to jump in here. The look on her face during that fight with Sam, like when they're up for the selection, just all sorts of things were all over that face for like that whole scene. It was quite amazing to see.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andrew.
So there's a couple of things I probably want to hit before we talk about the scene with dealing with her mother dying. I gotta say the whole arc between her and, of course, now I can't remember the character's name, Daniel's daughter,
Sam.
The whole arc between them at the start of this season is really interesting in terms of they're now on the same side, they're now friends, but there's also kind of that resolution of can they still be competitors at the same time? And you have the golden moment of Johnny trying to hold the girl's sleepover to try and start drama.
I'm glad you brought it up because I would have.
And they have that talk out there where they kind of air out all their grievances and kind of get it out there, and then also say, you know what, we can still go pretty hard and still be friends and not let that bad history come up again. Mm-hmm. And again, then that continues on through the captain's race. You have the entire, again, Peyton List just doing a great job with her character, learning her mother dies and going into that final match. And of course, you're going to have a big melodramatic argument. It's Cobra Kai, but it was valid points on both sides too. Like, I mean, I don't know if I'd be trying to have a tournament with somebody after getting that kind of news, but I'd definitely be on the mats trying to work it out a little bit. So, and I've done that in the past. So it's like, I was very much on Johnny's side during that conversation.
Yeah, I think ultimately having stopped it, give her a moment to kind of think things through and calm down, and then say, "What do you want to do?" and give the girl some agency would have been the best decision. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mark. I wanted to jump on one more thing. Just talking about her also going back to Cobra Kai. I think it was also a different approach for her because I think, on some level, her going back to Cobra Kai this time wasn't like as a true believer or anything like that. It was almost as a habit. It was a
place for her to fight. It was familiar.
Yeah, it was familiar. It was a place for her to fight. She knew Kreese. She didn't, she knew what to expect from him. She knew it wasn't going to turn into, she could be disconnected in some way from him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think the comfort point is totally valid on where she ended up with that. And again, like you said, the other characters had a conversation with her and said, we understand where we're at. We care about you and we're worried about you.
Yep. Hey, David, I wanted to talk to you about, and I didn't know if there was anything more you wanted to add. So, speak on both of these things if that's the case. But one of the things that happens in the first 5 episodes is the Miyagi mystery box, and by the end of this season, I understood the point of it. It was a way to get Daniel over the hump of there's no other way to do things but the Miyagi way. That Miyagi was an imperfect human being, and that allowing for variance and an alternative point of view is not the end of the world. Also, he is not Saint Miyagi. You do not have to follow every single one of his teachings to the letter. But the end justified the means, I suppose, because I like the fact that it got Danny to where we needed him to be by the end of the season. But getting there was a bit rough. The stuff with the mystery box, to me, felt a little forced, a little hackneyed. I'm going to throw it to David first, and then Pat, I'll get you to weigh in.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Is for a lot of just like, are we still like, what are we doing with this? Like, do we really need this story? Like, it did, like, this was a lot of the sort of feeling like the writers were kind of strained kind of against their limits.
Can I tell you how it's like, oh
season.
Christ, we're going to tear down Miyagi too? Anybody else you want to tear down? Captain America's a Hydra. All your good guys are bad guys. What kind of mirror hell universe am I living in?
I think the show has this lightsaber over his shoulder.
yeah.
We're not going there.
Let's not go there. I mean, the show had built up enough goodwill with me over the past 5 seasons that
Yeah.
I was kind of willing to give it the benefit of the doubt here, and I kind of got the whole like, yeah, it's like Daniel's been just like deifying Mr. Miyagi as the perfect human being, whereas like that's not people. Like everyone screwed up at least once in their life, and sometimes bigger than others. So like I didn't mind the whole that idea that Mr. Miyagi had some darkness in his past that he like worked through, and he became the person that we all know and love. Like that's life. You have people like that. But yeah, again, like for a lot of my problems with the season, it all came together at the end, and then I completely agree with you on that one. And I'm willing to like that. I would much rather things all work out great at the end than have things great at the beginning, and then the ending just drops off a cliff.
It just utterly unravels.
Yeah.
Go ahead, jump in there, Pat.
I can appreciate Mr. Miyagi was an actual human who made mistakes or had some rough times and things like that. The way it was handled was very rushed and almost needless at a certain point, because I don't think it really did anything, especially the way it was wrapped up, to add anything to the relationship between Daniel and his mentor, or Daniel's, evolution as a human at this point. I think the only good thing that really came out of big was when Johnny has the line. I think he's like, "Yeah, you're just mad because Mr. Miyagi was a thief and said something else." And I was like, "Damn, any reason to take a shot at him now, huh, Johnny? All right, you're entitled." But yeah, I'm very much in the same camp as David, where I can deal with things being not great at a certain point if I'm gonna get a resolution that satisfies me, especially as someone who's invested this amount of time into the series and built up, like David, a genuine, real love and interest in the series as it progressed. And at times, maybe it wasn't, what it was in the season prior, but it always won me over enough to really want me to keep coming back and see where this ends. I definitely agree that you could see the writers were being stretched a little thin at times and just trying to come up with something to fill time while trying to figure out how can we progress the story over this amount instead of now we have to extend it this far. And there were a lot of instances of that stuff in there. There were a lot of throwaway cameos in this season too, where it was just like, we just want to remember that this character exists type of thing.
Yeah.
Like Dimitri and Hawk's girlfriends.
Yep.
Everybody who pops in for a brief hot second. Everybody.
The Cobra Kai henchman.
Yeah. That him, Dennis, the kids who didn't qualify for the Sekai Taikai watching back at the Miyagi house.
Yeah.
The council members from the All Valley tournament. Really tried to get in everybody that we could, and that's an effort that I can appreciate, because it's something where you're just not forgetting everything and this person doesn't exist. There's no consequences. I enjoyed that part of it.
And again, nobody quite goes to Mandyland in Cobra Kai.
Yeah, other than Aisha. Yeah. But
if I could just stop. Yeah, go. Okay, just two things there. The one thing with the Mr. Miyagi like a mystery that paid off, I think, is you sort of had this bit near the end. I think it was around when Kreese was on his redemption tour, is Johnny and Daniel both realizing that, okay, our senseis were not perfect. They made mistakes. Not all of their teachings were good, but we both got good things from them. And the important thing is to take the good and not the bad and pass that on to the next generation.
Right.
That is our duty as sensei. And I think that was kind of the main payoff, is getting them both on the same page there. You had Daniel having Mr. Miyagi not being the great man that he was, and then you have Johnny realizing that, okay, Kreese, he was a son of a bitch, but there was something of good in him that finally came out, at the end, and sort of acknowledging that. And then the only other thing to say is, like, did anyone else, when that Cobra Kai goon showed up, thought Danny Trejo is in this? Yeah. That's all I got. To continue.
He just came to give Danny tacos.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, Ben, he lost weight.
Andrew,
yeah,
let's
he was
talk
emaciated, Danny Trejo.
Before we move on to the second set of 5 episodes, we do have to talk about this Korean version of Cobra Kai. The first couple episodes sort of set up Kreese as being, somewhat leading the pack here, along with the lady sensei, the granddaughter of the leader of this group.
Jaime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I'm not the only person who doesn't know her name.
Not even a little bit. I'm really trying to keep it clean tonight, but boy, there were a couple of jokes in my head. But yeah, my problem with this, and this is definitely a writing thing. Let me go ahead and say before this goes any further, I like the show. I like the way it ended. It definitely gave me the feels. These are like nitpicks, craft issues. These are objective criticisms of writing, not I hate the show. So I can get that disclaimer out of the way. But there was, I feel like 6 seasons into this, they just don't have an original way to write opposing villain dojo anymore. Like I didn't see, there wasn't anything about this that I thought made it special. I mean, the Iron Dragons, at least they had they had the one guy who looks like one of the guys from Tough Enough back in the WWE.
Yep.
Just was fucking huge.
I thought we were going for Dolph Lundgren reference there.
Yeah, there was a couple of ways you could have gone with that. Like the Iron Dragons looked imposing. The Korean Cobra Kai, left me feeling like, did you run out of ideas? What did you think of their presentation?
So I got to backtrack for 1 second because I got to jump in on this Miyagi redemption arc, and I'll tie it together with the Kreese one actually. So yeah, I think I'm on the same page as everyone else. It kind of felt like a bit of a distraction a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And on some level, I felt like they kind of betrayed the idea of it as well when they found out every time there's a reasonable explanation of why he did X or Y. So it's not like Daniel actually had to, just kind of move on and forgive him for whatever faults he was because he was found to be justified every time. I would have liked that because people can have rough times in their lives. I mean, Christ,
so I don't think
Miyagi lost both his wife and his son in an internment camp. Of course, he'd go through some trauma after that.
Yeah,
and I think that also works together with the whole Kreese side of it because it's like, Kreese had his redemption. I didn't even say a redemption moment where he at least reconciles with Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, he's still a son of a bitch who then went on a revenge tour against Silver at the end. So it was very true to his character still go out on a shield on a lot of ways.
Hang on 1 second. David was trying to cut in here.
Oh, sorry. The one thing is we never really did get an explanation for the death at the tournament in Miyagi's fight. That was kind of the only thing left to mine for that. That was kind of the only thing I could think of for that point.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I really liked actually where they went with the Korean Cobra Kai, and I think that has to do with actually more of the characters than anything else. Like, of course, I'm really blanking on names tonight, but the kind of the lead Cobra Kai guy who Kreese kind of mentored. Sorry.
Was it Quan you're talking about?
I think Quan.
Yeah, Quan. Yeah,
Quan was great. Like a really, really, kind of charismatic baddie. Knew how to get in, take over any scene he was in. Obviously, a really skilled performer in terms of what he could do in terms of his martial arts. So I mean, I like that. I like the way they played off with Tori and things like that. And maybe I'll speak just generally, even going to that whole Seikai Taikai arc. I think it was good of them to show that, hey, all of our main characters are kind of underdogs in this overall thing where it's not like just automatically Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do. It's also the Irish and the Russians and the Russian doping thing that was so damn funny and everything else in there. And it's like
90% of the participants are psychopaths. It's like 90% of the participants in the Seikai Taikai are probably psychopaths.
But I kind of liked how they went with it. It was kind of a unique way of going for it, and I think it called back to a lot of your dojo storming and stuff like that. So I enjoyed where they went with that depiction.
Pat, what did you think of? And I'm really curious to get your opinion because you're a big combat sports guy. I mean, we all are to one extent or another. But you're over the years of talking to you, you're pro wrestling fan, MMA fan. You definitely have an eye for presentation of the combat sport. When they described the Seikai Taikai, I got almost a Mortal Kombat vibe from its description, and then I saw what they came up with, and it reminded me of the line, "You're only as smart as your writer," and I think in this case, you're only as creative, or you're only as ingenious as the writers. And I don't know how many of these people have seen large-scale multi-dojo karate tournaments. And so, but I don't want to judge too harshly. I haven't been to one of these, so I don't know. But what did you think of what they decided the Sakai Takai, the most dangerous karate tournament in the universe, was?
My thought was it was going to look a little more like Karate Combat, maybe something along those lines, individualized fights, and then go into like the old, like, remember, I don't know if you guys watched on ESPN or TSN in Canada. I'm cultural. If they used to do the old ISKA programs where you'd have a lot of different martial arts demonstrations, you'd have like
A little bit, yeah.
wushu practitioners, and then you'd have guys doing breaking exhibitions and stuff like that.
Right.
That was my initial perception, that it was going to be stuff like that, as opposed to getting just 17 different forms of melee combat.
Okay, good. I didn't want to say it and be the negative one. Thank you.
Yeah. With an interesting point system where, there's not a stoppage after a point. It's just going to continue on. So in that way, it's almost like the old amateur boxing scoring where if a point registered,
the
the judges
Jack
had the
Dempsey model. I'll just stand over you and fucking
And
pummel you to
actually,
death.
not that. I'm talking about more about their computer point scoring system
Okay.
where, like, if a punch lands, every judge has to hit a button at a certain time, and then it's counted, and they're still going. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, where it's like, okay, well, they're going to count that, but they're actually still going to go. So you have to be aware and signal point.
Yeah.
It was like a little bit, I give them creativity points for sure, based on everything they did with that. Don't know if it was the cleanest way they could have gone, or if it was necessarily the most. I don't know where they drew all the inspiration from.
XMA.
I forget
Is that the Taekwondo one?
WCMA Masters or something like that from back in the 90s.
Yeah,
Love WMAC Masters. Oh my god.
I was gonna. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna. David, is XMA the one that the Taekwondo kids do?
I think it was like extreme martial arts. It was like some attempt to make like martial arts, Cool and badass and
It's
stuff.
like aluminum weapons and a lot of spinning and screaming.
Yeah. It was like people basically doing highly choreographed acrobatic dance routines that really had very little actual application in actual combat. But it looked really cool. So hey,
I like a good dance fight.
Oh, I have to say, like the competitors were like very impressive athletically. Just like you do realize if you did that in an actual fight, you would die in like 3 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say probably, Pat, one thing I know, depending on, I don't compete in this, but I know people from my studio do. There actually are like continuous point systems as well, where they don't stop for calls on points. But the whole Sakai Takai thing was kind of it was gimmick matches over and over and over again. But again, it was a good way to have a bit of an exhibition of everybody out there with the fight choreo.
Yeah, I think it was just like, it's just kind of a bit boring if it's just like two people get on the mat and they punch and kick each other until one of them wins. Well, let's have the mat suspended in the air and have it like a tag team match and people going in and out and falling off of things. And
that was not the only one I thought was interesting. Like, again, as Pat said, it felt like every other attempt at this was just more melee combat. And I'm like, all right, we're not going to do fights with sticks. We're not going to, maybe, rubber tipped size or anything like that. We're just going to do hand-to-hand combat. Like, I thought this was the most dangerous tournament ever. The fact that, and we could just jump right into this because it was so ridiculous, because there's not a whole lot that happens in that second set of 5. So the Russians, because of course it was, are accused of doping, and they can't take, you're disqualified for an answer. So they start a rumble, and this is Kreese's opportunity to commit a stabbing.
Assassinate.
Yeah, to knife Silver, and he drops his knife midway on his way to go get Silver. So Quan picks it up, and he has a fight with fucking Matt Morgan.
Like Axel, I think. Yeah, the Ivan Drago kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep calling him different.
He dies. He dies.
So he gets in there with Gunther, and and of course, and it's so funny because they couldn't just have him get stabbed. He had to fall on the knife he brought, so as to make sure as an audience you don't hate this character. Oh, the tragedy. Except that you spent, 10 episodes at that point beating us over the head that he's a villain, he's a bad guy, he's a bag of shit, and I could have spent the last 10 minutes telling you all the bad things he does leading up to that. But we're going to kill him so that we can get into the third arc of this thing, the last set of 5 episodes. And it is as if they were like, Wait, we're killing somebody we've now just taught the audience to hate, Pat. We taught the audience to hate this guy, and then we're gonna stab him, and they're like, well, wait, no one's gonna care. So he has to fall on his knife.
I did like how during the minute of silence you had Peanut's breath eating chips.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's like perfect tone thing because it's like we're all like moment of silence, but he was an asshole.
That seems like a very thing that kid would do. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, the whole he dies falling on the knife after Axel kicks him. He also fell on the knife because he picked it up and tried to use it on Axel, and Axel defended himself. So,
and did spinny shit in a knife fight.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah. I think he skipped knife day at training.
But damn sure he made it for parkour day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Parkour.
Yeah. If we don't have anything else about the actual knife incident, I just want to really quick say, David, I like the addition. I could care less about the Korean Cobra Kai. I was glad to see them gone, but I did like the Iron Dragon stuff. The evil coach working for Silver. I liked the little bit of origin story they gave him. I liked the conflict within Alex. It was a very Luke Skywalker thing of I'm fighting the hatred inside that I've been sort of trained with, but I don't want to be a bad person. I like that he likes Sam. Sam gave him attention, and so clearly he had to marry her. That's how that works, boys. And then it's like, oh, but she has a boyfriend, and it's like, oh, well, now I want to kill him. But no one did anything wrong, and I am conflicted.
I was like, why is that guy looking at me like that? What did I do?
I think on Kwan's death, they were looking for a way to obviously kill somebody off and not necessarily have somebody be directly responsible for it either, so they could turn it into a tragedy and not, a straight up murder.
They absolutely were, but it was, like I said, I have to keep repeating myself. I like the writing of the show, but sometimes it's a little hackneyed. But I liked Axel. I think he's the most interesting character of season 6. He was my favorite. But the little girl there, the 10-pound girl who does Instagramming and whatnot.
Yeah, the influencer. Yeah.
Oh God, she was terrible.
I liked watching her move. She had a dancer's grace, kind of a break dancer.
Yeah, little capoeira-esque.
Yeah, and
possibly.
I liked watching it. It was pleasing to my eye. I don't know how effective it was.
I mean, at least someone had the idea that, hey, this girl is like 10 pounds soaking wet. We're not going to have her be like a brute force fighter. So she's just going to be all like speed and maneuverability.
Yeah, and when she finally gets kicked in the face and loses teeth, it was satisfying. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, she was there to be hated, to cause some chaos, and then you just really, really love it when she gets hers in the end.
Yeah.
Although as much as this is going to open doors for Peyton List, Raina Vallandigham, which is her name, she's a very legitimate Taekwondo practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
She is probably bound for some very big things because she is blowing up right now all over interview circuits, and Century Martial Arts has sponsored her for a while already. So now that she has that added attention,
maybe she can be a Black Widow in the next Marvel movie because they're running out of 110-pound girls.
I was so tempted to make a comparison, but the joke didn't come to me. So thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I actually do have a Marvel thing I need to interject right now.
Okay.
And because you brought him up, God damn it, Louis Tan, you are such a magnificent heel.
Yeah.
He was so good in this season. He just portrayed bad intentions. He's a great martial artist. I mean, I think he was the drunken boxer from that one good scene in Iron Fist.
And he was Cole in Mortal Kombat.
Yes, and I was about to say, I think the big failing there is that they made him a good guy.
Yeah.
Because he was just so malignant the entire time he was there. It's like, okay, here's the pitch, Marvel. Shang-Chi 2, no kaiju fights, just have him and Shang-Chi go at it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'd go see that.
That would be fun.
I assume we're talking about the Iron Dragon Dojo Sensei.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was so good. He was so fun this entire season. So
yeah, I almost wish in retrospect they call it the Silver Dragon Dojo, and then when you get the big reveal, it's like, oh shit, I should have figured that out sooner.
By the way, I gotta say that scene of him just kind of showing up in the spa and everything was just so wonderfully evil.
Who I rolled hard like I did in the episode where Danny goes looking, trying to find answers to the Miyagi thing, and it's all a bait and switch, and he ends up in the dog cage. Pat, you're covering your eyes. I can see your migraine.
This just is how much of a meathead can you still be at a certain point?
I am 50 years old and I've learned nothing.
I immediately was like, okay, and then just going through my head of all of his colossal fumbles through the course of the series, like when he shoves Terry Silver at the charity function because he's telling Miss Garcia these lies about my wife.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Stupid
That
asshole.
was my favorite Danny cringe moment.
I was about to say, Pat, I mean, you're in New York. I mean, is this typical of guys from Jersey who are still like this in their 60s?
We'd like to say yes.
How many total assholes are there in New Jersey, Pat? We need a count.
Oof, wow.
Hey, man, everything's legal in Jersey.
Yeah. Aside from the very, very nice fellas in Nutley, I have no issue with you guys. You're always okay with me.
All right. Anything else before we move on to the last set of 5? David, we kind of jumped around from different things. I haven't really talked about the kids much because they weren't that interesting, quite frankly.
Agreed.
All the interesting stuff is either with new characters or Danny and Johnny. But I don't want to be remiss. So just a quick thing. Anything on either the first or the second set of 5 episodes that we didn't talk about?
For the kids themselves, not really a whole lot. I mean, maybe this was not Dimitri's season. God, that kid was such an ass in every way across the board, pretty much until the redemption. But yeah, that was just had to get that out there. The one thing I would like to touch on is the whole Kwan's death thing, because I think like what they were going for is like Kreese basically turned Kwan into the perfect Cobra Kai student. Just took this kid, the underdog, full of rage, not his talent not really acknowledged, and just kind of like set him loose on the world, basically telling him like, look, the secret is you just got to be an asshole and everything will work out. and the actor, I forget his name, like perfect job. Like I hated that guy. He was such a jerk.
Brandon H. Lee, which is a very, very this show name.
Yeah. I mean, he did a great job. He was a great villain. Just love to hate character. But I think the idea was like, because he just could not like him grabbing the knife and going for Axel. That was just, defeat does not exist in this dojo. No mercy. Like Cobra Kai never dies. It's like, this is the end point of taking a troubled kid, teaching them to fight at a high level, and then giving her the warrior ethos of like a soldier. Like from kind of getting into like Kreese's like sort of Vietnam, we will never accept defeat issues, and like at some point with that philosophy, the fight's going to end when one person dies.
Yep.
And that's what happens with Kwan. I mean, he died due to his own stupidity in like bringing a knife to a karate fight, which oddly enough should have worked out a lot more in his favor, but that just goes to show. And I think that's sort of what tilts Kreese on his redemption arc, is sort of his realization that, this is the end result of my teachings and what I am doing, and this isn't what I wanted.
Yeah. I speak a lot about keeping your connections in life. To be isolated, to have no social supports, no family around you, nothing like that, is to die a slow death. And I think Kreese kind of coming to the conclusion of this is no life at all to be this isolated and this hated, this lonely. I need to make amends, and I need to go out as best a hero as I can. It's actually really one of the things I really liked about this show. There's nothing but complaints so far, but we'll talk about it in a few minutes. But the way Kreese goes out was one of my favorite parts of the season. Andrew, anything else about the first 10 episodes that we didn't talk about that you want to address?
I think I'm on the same page as everybody else. I mean, I think I wasn't that engaged with a lot of the kid storylines. I mean, the Dimitri Hawk thing got really old after a while. Like I said, I think we talked a lot about obviously Tori and Sam and their dynamic, which I thought was probably one of the stronger elements of it.
They didn't backslide, which was fantastic.
Exactly. And I mean, I think a lot can kind of be said in the same way with both Miguel and Robbie on that one. Although I gotta ask a logistical question. Oh my God, how much money do they have to suddenly get the emergency plane tickets from Barcelona back to California, then to California back to Barcelona again?
Well, it's like a $5,000 trip, all told.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean,
Daniel's a very generous man. But more importantly, how do they do all that with like the Concords not in service anymore?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think actually, you know what? Now that I really think about it, I mean, I think the Miguel, Johnny, Robbie story was, I think, probably one of the high points with that. With obviously, Johnny kind of realizing that he has to have more adult responsibilities now. His relationship with Miguel, with Robbie, and everything like that. And I mean, I think we really kind of touch on that again at the very end of the season. But I thought that was, an honestly kind of heartwarming part of this show in terms of those characters' growth, them growing together, things along that line.
Did anyone else get like Rocky 2 vibes from that hospital scene?
Oh,
Oh
come
my
on, that
God.
was
I have
so
not watched
intentional.
Rocky 2 in a long time.
They could not have aped it any harder, right, Pat?
Yeah.
Well,
Dude,
other than I forget her name, Miguel's mom, she wasn't like a complete wet blanket until she had the medical emergency in childbirth, and then all of a sudden decided to be supportive.
Yeah, which is 100% the Adrian scale. Wet blanket. Oh, medical emergency. Now I'm going to tell you to go win.
Yeah, I still don't get that. But anyway, this isn't a Rocky podcast.
Let me say this. Karate paralyzed him temporarily, but karate also repaired his back. So, what was she going to do? Karate Gate. She actually says this. I'm being facetious and making a joke, but she actually does say this later on. She was like, karate is what brought us all together. Who am I to fight about this? Which reminds me, and as we transition into the last 5 episodes, and Pat, if there's something about the previous 10, feel free to add this in. But I do want to talk about this. Low-key, best character in the show, Danny's wife.
Yes.
She's so good. Like, it took her a little while to sort of get on board, but she has some of the funniest lines of this show, and like acknowledging things like the Los Angeles Valley karate wars, and her like, I'm involved in the way stupid, but this is my life, and I love my husband. Let me just say that with all of the problems in film and television, where acknowledging that loving couples is a good thing. It was nice to see it in this show that despite Danny's flaws, he's not a bad guy, and oh my God, she loves her husband. In the year of our Lord 2025, a woman loves a man. My God, send these writers over to Lucasfilm. Anyway, Pat, your thoughts?
Yeah, just bearing with those 10 episodes that we talked about, at least the first 10, could not have had more different reactions to the first 5 and the second 5 in terms of my enjoyment. And I get it was supposed to be a slow burn. We get there. We all know the writing tree. Put your character up a tree, assess the situation, get them out of the tree. The first half, this really probably could have only been 10 episodes, and we'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that first half was really slow, really not consequential in many of its instances, especially when we see how much time is devoted to the Mr. Miyagi mystery that really has a 0 payoff in the end.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the second 5 episodes, when we really get into the dynamics of the competition, the infighting, the fact that these guys have never really been able to put their differences aside, no matter how much they team up, being addressed, finally having relevance to the overall story in a meaningful way. And now you're seeing it trickle down to how the kids fight with each other, particularly Robbie, Miguel. The Dimitri Hawk stuff is secondary, but at least it's something between them to give them something to do. And unfortunately, Devin, there's nothing for her to do other than fail. Sorry, you weren't ready for
the Devin
this,
stuff
kid.
was good this year.
I liked her almost kind of father-daughter dynamic with Johnny.
Yeah.
She has
And I think that was great.
She has really good chemistry with William Zabka.
Yes.
And again, chemistry is like, what are you saying? No, chemistry. She and him do very well together, and they absolutely project father-daughter.
And again, she did great stuff during the sleepover episode as kind of like Johnny's almost guide and sounding board in certain respects during it, into how teenage girls think.
Yeah.
But when they get to the Sekai Taikai, she's just there to basically, take the beatings and just, not be an essential part of the team, and even ends up giving her spot away to Kenny. So I felt bad about that, to be honest.
I did, but I think that also made sense because I think she was, during the Sekai Taikai, she was also feeling guilt about what she pulled with Kenny to get him there. So it was kind of a bit of a mental trip for her.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I just think it's a shame because I think that character had a lot of potential, and I think she got shortchanged because of that.
No, totally fair.
Yeah. And so there's that part of it. Yeah, the second episodes with the amount of action beats they packed in that were missing during the first 5 episodes really kicked that series into overdrive. The reintroduction of Silver, obviously, the reference to Dennis Te Guzman still being a part of everything. See, the second half was the second third, excuse me, very much fan service. Let's get to the meat that people want to see, and let's really get you into high gear for what's coming next in the final 3.
I will say this: 10 episodes in, one of the things I actually really liked about this, and I was thinking about this. So there's the 4 of us, and we're doing some analysis, and we're examining some craft issues. But I think for the average person just watching this, what do you watch Cobra Kai for? You watch it for the karate. There's so much karate in the 10 episodes up to this point. And I think that's to the show's credit. It was very much, let's go out with a bang. Let's give the people what they want. And I am all for that. Let's talk about resolutions here as we start to wind up the podcast. But it's going to take a while to get through these because there's quite a lot of resolutions. I'm going to start with Sam. Sam coming to the conclusion, I don't need this. I did this to build up self-confidence. I did this to bond with my dad. I did this because it was a girl bullying me. I have grown. I have become the best woman I can be at the tender age of 17, 18 years old, and I have more life to live. I don't need to win this fucking tournament. And she bows out, essentially giving Tori a straight line at our enemy Pixie that she has to fight. And I think that was the best, and we can each touch on this and then we'll move on to the next one. That was the best beat for Sam. That was the best resolution they could come to. 100%. I don't think, Andrew, they could have done it better for Sam. I think, and I generally don't like Sam as a character, but by the end of this, she has blossomed into a beautiful butterfly.
Yeah, Mark, I'll go with that. I think that was a good kind of arc for her, and I think again, her realizing she doesn't need this as part of her whole life. So
Right.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with that one.
Dave, what did you think of Sam's arc?
Yeah, I like the whole idea of like, wait a minute, like, why am I even here now? Like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't actually want to punch out Tori anymore. We're friends now, and that was sort of the reason why I was doing it at this stage. I don't need to be the world champion in karate. That's not what I'm going for. And how that sort of ties into Daniel's realization that, again, like Miyagi-Do is never about winning tournaments. Like the only reason they did the tournament in the first place in the first movie was to give Daniel some time to train so he could win the respect of the bullies in Cobra Kai so they wouldn't bully him anymore.
Right.
So it was kind of nice that it was kind of like that dovetailed well with sort of Daniel finding his path back to sort of the original spirit of Miyagi-Do, which, like, if you do martial arts, like the idea is like martial arts are for self-defense for the most part. Like, you're not, it's not about, starting wars and that kind of stuff. But like, it's funny because like if like I was a little, it kind of allows the show to sort of have its cake and eat it too.
Mhm.
Like if you watch any Japanese sports movie, like they always make it to the final and then they lose, but it's okay because like the friends they made along the way was the real victory. Yeah. Whereas most American sports shows, of course, they win at the end because fuck yeah, America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of nice that you sort of had Sam sort of dealing with that whole, like, the actual more spiritual, practical side of modern day martial arts, and then you had like sort of Johnny, Miguel, and Tori having the whole like, no, we have scores to settle and we're going to go out there and kick some ass and win because America.
Pat, Sam.
Her character arc is my second favorite through the course of the series. And I really started to love the character in season 3 when it gets to the point where they're going to let Tori back into the school based on Sam's mom wanting to be okay with it and getting her help. And Sam has this like, dad can't get along with his karate rival for 5 minutes, and I'm supposed to let this girl back into the school who tried to hurt me, broke into my house. And she just turns this switch on where it's no longer about Miyagi-Do. I need to take control of my life, and I'm going to do it how I need to. And she goes through this development of, she likes ending up training with Johnny, and she likes what she applied there. She figures things out with her boyfriend. She figures things out in this season, kind of where her future's headed, especially after that talk where I've never seen anything and I always wanted to see this. And we get that, at the end, she's going to be going to Okinawa for a semester abroad. But her bowing out, it was, people are magnifying the point of, oh, she did it for Tori. But more like David hit on, it's no longer about this for me. This is never what this was about for me.
Right.
This was about finding myself again, getting my confidence, my strength back, fighting for what I believe in, for a cause, for that. And this isn't that anymore, especially after Quan died. This isn't about that. This is about, my life belongs to me and it's not determined by this one way or another. So let somebody whose life may potentially be going that way do it. I have other goals, priorities. I've figured things out and I figured out what I want, at least in the interim for that. And it's not this. And I love that. The maturity level of that character as it went through the series was great. And I appreciated the writing, and really I appreciated Mary Mouser's performance because I think her facial acting got better with each season.
Yeah.
And I think it went from kind of just typical reaction to I really felt what she was saying in a lot of those respects. And I felt like she wasn't performing as an actor. She's saying things to heart that she believes, and that's the ultimate acting you can do.
What was your first one? Keeping with you,
Johnny, come on.
Oh, then we have to come back to that. All right. Let's talk about Miguel. And I liked. So Miguel ends up fighting in the end. He fights
Axel.
Axel. Yeah, they have a really good fight, and I like the little montage they show where it's you follow him from falling off the second floor at the school to getting the strength back. That for him, his journey from the start of this was to become a strong man, and not in just the muscular sense, but in your loyalty, your hustle, loyalty, and your respect. Your loyalty,
Your strength of character.
Yep. All of that was all built up over time, and he, as much as I like the Axel character, he deserved that win, and he did so in great fashion. His decision he's going to go to Stanford. He's just not going over the summer. He will start semester like a normal person in, I guess, August. So, but he wants to go spend the summer in Okinawa with Sam. I thought that was cute. This for me was a kind of a victory lap for Miguel. That because they had to concentrate on so much, he doesn't get much. But by this point, he didn't need much. And so I liked Pat. How they ended with Miguel. I was okay with everything they did with him, and I'm glad he got to fight in the Cobra Kai gi and win the fight, and I took the whole show full circle.
It's the way it needed to end. It started, the show's name is Cobra Kai, and that's where it started, and it started with two main people, Johnny and Miguel. Mm-hmm. And so to see sensei and student win in the end is the very fitting bow to tie everything together. And because everybody has their reasons for karate, like we talked about with Miguel. For Miguel to go that far and not deliver it would have undermined everything he did.
Right.
Where, okay, maybe it's the Hollywood Cinderella ending, but it also was poignant in that sense, where not only did he do that, but he also, in beating Axel, validated everything he had worked for, proved himself as the guy who he is set out to be in terms of, I'm trying to be the best I can be for myself, for my family, and for my sensei a lot.
Yeah.
And I love that. And who's basically now his father. And again, going back to Carmen's line of karate brought us all together, it's only fitting that he do his best for everything that karate's given him to give his all for this fight, beat this seemingly unbeatable monster, Axel, who housed Robbie, who is Miguel's arch rival and closest competitor through the majority of the series. He showed everything he could do in that moment, and it was so fulfilling for anybody, I believe, who's watched this from the get-go.
Yep. Andrew?
I don't have, Pat, you hit that really, really well. So, I mean, I think maybe I'll say that, go on this point instead. I think, one of the things that this last 5 episodes do is they really just string together these whole moments of kind of fuck yeah moments.
Yeah.
And one of them is being Miguel walking out in the Cobra Kai gi, being able to compete like that. Obviously, maybe we'll hit a couple different things, but like, Danny handing the old Cobra Kai, again, going back to the circular arc on this, handing back the keys to the original dojo to Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
And just, they kept on having these moments where it was just these awesome, crowd engagement kind of pops that just kept everything going. And I mean, I think I already said it, but I mean, I thought the relationship between Miguel and Johnny was outstanding this season.
Yeah.
The Snakes on the Plane episode was great, and again, really
Great
happy to see
title.
that character win at the end. I will say I am very glad we're ending this with these characters at this point, because that actor's 5 o'clock shadow was not convincing as an 18-year-old anymore.
No.
Oh,
He didn't shave. He's gonna end up with either my beard or Pat's beard.
Yeah, I think I'd give Dimitri's actor the award for the most not a teenager anymore in this production.
Did you, Dave? Did you want anything to Miguel? If not, I want to talk about Tori and Robbie.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw some quick things here. Like the bit where like Miguel, he's done the sort of second act, losing the fight thing, and he goes back to his corner and just like, I don't know, I can do it, Sensei, and you just see like his captain's bandana is like hanging off his head, and then Robbie just like he goes to put it back on, and not Robbie, then Johnny just like takes it away, takes off his bandana, puts it on Miguel, and just says like, don't care about the points, just go out there and give it the best 2 minutes of karate you can, and he just sends him on there. But yeah, like, I don't think I really have much more to say about Miguel that hasn't already been said. But I would like to talk about Axel just a little bit here.
Go ahead.
Because like we've sort of seen how he's basically been like beaten into like being a champion by his sensei, almost a sort of like Mike Tyson-esque Ivan Drago character, and you have like his sensei says like he made him sort of do the sweep the leg thing with Robbie, break the leg, make it look like it was an accident kind of thing, and he did that. And then his sensei says, like when he goes to do his roundhouse or whatever, his back's open and just break his back sort of thing. And you just have that one moment in the fight where he sees the opening and he just thinks for a second, and he doesn't.
Right.
And it was just kind of like that moment where he was just like, okay, you break someone's leg, shitty thing to do, but broken legs pretty much heal. Like screwing someone up, like making them a paraplegic for the rest of their life for a fucking karate tournament, like no, like I'm not doing that. That is not the me I want to be.
His looking in the mirror and going, what am I? Am I a bad person or am I a good person? And ultimately deciding he's a good person, I think was Axel's entire arc, and I think it's a worthy arc.
Yeah, and I just wanted to sort of acknowledge that Axel isn't much of a character in the show, but he still has a bit to go on, and
just enough of what the show needed.
Yeah.
Tori and Robbie, I'm going to link together because they end with a similar fate. Robbie doesn't win the tournament, but he's a good looking, he's just a dandy looking fellow. And so he's standing with Tori, and Tori has now won the tournament, having beat the living shit out of our enemy Pixie. And then she gets a sponsor, and the girl looks at Robbie, and she's like, well, you're a handsome fella. Here's your contract, too. And God, I wish life worked out that way. But it was, I was thinking about this, Pat. We talk about the predictable ending, but when it's predictably satisfying, who gives a shit? No person who I can take seriously cheers for the Empire to win.
No, they're the good guys.
Right. Nobody wants Luke to miss the shot, and the Death Star to blow up Yavin. Nobody, no serious person at least.
Guys, we're getting back to like the Barney Stinson logic of how he got this show in the first place.
So my point being the fact that you have Tori wins the tournament and Tori and Robbie go on tour together as karate hotties, I think was the perfect ending for them.
Their story of kind of being, how do I put this? The two birds with broken wings, I guess you'd call them, for all the circumstances they had of how they grew up and what they dealt with as adults and everything that complicated them with their criminal histories that, were really unfortunate products of, bad environments that they were in without nurturing, without care. And to see them come full circle again, we're going to use that term a lot probably, just to make it as far as they did with the one good thing they had in their lives, which is karate. And to see them use that as the springboard where, hey, guess what? You're getting signed to a sponsorship because you just knocked out the number one girl in the world, basically. And, hey, you're with her? We saw what you did out there too, handsome. We got you on the list because we know what you can do already. So, again, cheesy, predictable, sure. Satisfying, absolutely.
Yep. David, your thoughts on Tori and Robbie?
Yeah, I think like Robbie's big moment came after his leg got broken, and again we get another joke about the the heat massage in the locker room. Not as good as the first season's joke, but
Right.
so I appreciate. But I just love that bit where Robbie's talking with Johnny, and he said like, I could have been a world champion, and now the world will never know that, but I will, and that's good enough for me. And he just says, like, I'm focusing, I'm not focusing on the negatives. I'm focusing on the positives, and like everything that karate's given me in my life. It's given me friends, family. It's given me my brother. And then he looks at Johnny. It's given me my dad.
Yeah.
And
That got me.
Yeah, that got me too.
All that was just like,
yeah, like message to the writers of the world here. Like we know, like I'm going to be very stereotypical here. Like if you want to get women's heartstrings going, you do something about girl meets boy and romance and all that stuff. If you want to get at a man's heartstrings, do father son. I mean,
100%.
the speech in Rocky VI. Need I say more?
Yeah, that's how winning's done.
Yeah, exactly. And just to have that sort of moment of, and not even looking at it just from Robbie's perspective, but from Johnny's as well, as sort of the son that he lost due to his own mistakes in the past sort of has come back to him now. And you even see that more in like when Kreese and Johnny have their sort of second heart to heart. And like I love the bit where he just says like I just you betrayed me, you left me alone, and then like all Kreese can do is he just like hugs him and says, "I'm sorry, son."
Yeah. We can drift into that a little bit. Let's just to kind of move this along. Kreese, I don't know when this happened, Pat. When did we decide Kreese has to talk like a beat poet? Like he hangs out with William S. Burroughs? What the fuck are we doing with Kreese's speech patterns? Johnny, Campbell's soup. Like, what are you doing? Speed it up, pal.
Shatner.
I was thinking that too, Andrew.
Jesus Christ. But I do like the fact that after all is said and done, he ends up on the boat with Kreese, with the Silver, and they have a fight, and it's just me, fight forever. It's me and you to the end, and then
actually, Kreese, it's just me.
And the cigar gets into the gas, and and the boat blows up like the fucking Death Star.
Yeah, I don't think that's how that works, but whatever.
It doesn't matter. Look, the car in Amelia Perez also goes off the road, hits a tree, and blows up like the Death Star. This is a thing we do now. Everything is that flammable. Anyways, speaking of Amelia Perez, let's talk about that ship blowing up, and again, another perfect ending for Kreese and Silver. And let me tell you how I had to hold my breath, like, oh, please don't do this. When he's like, go kidnap Danny's family. And I'm like, oh, or Johnny's family, whichever one it was. And I'm like, oh, no, please don't. And then they immediately did away with it as if to say, we know this is stupid. We got you. Thank God.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, for someone obsessed with his strong karate, he sure cheats a lot.
It was the perfect. I think them blowing up in the boat, fighting, together to the end. Again, I get that gave me that Sam and that Frodo and Gollum moment. I just thought it was perfect.
Sorry, just quick aside here. Like on the whole, like if your karate's so strong, why are you cheating so much? It's like when Johnny goes into his fight and the Iron Dragon Sensei ambushes him in the locker room to sort of get in his head, and he just starts off with like, I don't need to get in your head. Like my karate's so strong, I'll win anyway. It's like, well, then why are you still trying to get in my head?
Right. So, Pat, your thoughts on the ending of the final arc of Kreese and Silver?
Again, kind of like we said at the beginning, I'm fine with the fight forever, dying together.
Mm-hmm.
It was really kind of, you had to figure out some way to satisfy these loose ends. That Kreese isn't going to be omnipresent in Johnny's life, despite the apology and all that stuff afterwards. It just doesn't make any sense with all the legal shit he's brought upon this family, the LaRussos, everything that he's done. He's not completely redeemable in any sense of the word. Even if he may try to make amends, they're not going to take you back in. It's gone too far and too much.
No, martyrdom works much better.
Yeah. For Silver, he's the bad guy. He's got to face some kind of permanent defeat and humiliation. So for him to go out at the hands of the guy he considered his weakness, I thought was kind of a cool thing. And again, I as corny as it is, it's satisfying watching these two old guys who have known each other forever. They're going to fight on this boat, die together, and fight forever in the afterlife. I'm fine with this.
Andrew?
You know what, Pat? You actually reminded me of something from earlier in the season that I thought was really good. Was the whole weakness conversation about where Kreese was and how he thought, Johnny was his weakness. Only, obviously in a different way than as it turned out. But I think I said it earlier. I think Kreese redeemed himself as much as he ever was going to, and at that point, all he had left was to go out on a shield. And I think the way that character ended was perfect.
Not sure if there was anything more you wanted to add, David, but we do need to talk about Danny. The last 5 episodes, he kind of resolves the whole Miyagi thing. He, learns that we talked about balance. I was just thinking about this morning, how I wanted to talk about this, and I want to say this, Dave. Daniel, when in the Karate Kid, and he's talking about, a big theme of that movie is balance, and it's demonstrated by him learning the crane kick as a symbol. Balance to me, I'm gonna get your thoughts on this, is not just about that it is about light and darkness. Not to make any more Star Wars jokes, but it is about there is no one way, there is no all the one thing. There is light and darkness, and it's your ability to navigate both, and that is the place that Danny finally comes to, accepting different perspectives, balancing of light and dark. And I like that about him. I like that acknowledgement by the writers, and I think that the fact that that's where he arrives by the end of the show, giving up some of his control issues, saying goodbye to his daughter who wants to go off and leave the nest and see the world, allowing Johnny to have his dream. We'll talk about this in a moment. To reopen Cobra Kai as a place to learn to be a man, be a woman, with all the good attributes of both, and him accepting that and being okay with it. I like that he kept the Miyagi dojo open as a place of, well, it's something else for you to learn, but there's nothing wrong with having Johnny's thing out there too. We will work in tandem. So I think Danny ended his arc in as perfect place as he could have. I don't think there's anything more they could have done with that character, and I was very satisfied with where they left him.
Okay, yeah, I think the only thing I really have to say on Kreese is, again, the lesson to all you writers out there. There's nothing wrong with having a backstory for your villain that explains why they are the way they are. The problem is a lot of writers use that as, well, now, like, they don't have to be, face the consequences of any of the bad things that they've done. And that's sort of where I have issues with that. It's like, oh, Cruella de Vil's parents were killed by Dalmatian guard dogs, so now it's okay that she wants to kill 101 puppies just so she has a nice coat. What?
That's how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that they kind of did a good job of, like, okay, Kreese, he put right what he could have put right, but he still did the bad stuff that he did, and he has to face up to that. And yeah, it's not going to be an all is forgiven and everything works out ending for him. But on to Daniel. I mean, my biggest complaint about the show as a whole is it really retreaded a lot of the same ground over and over and over again. Like, every single season, it's like Daniel and Johnny get in a fight, and then they learn how to respect each other. Then they get in another fight, and just on and on and on and on. So it does get a bit frustrating watching the characters learn the same lessons multiple times in the same season. And I mean, I appreciate that Daniel's not a perfect person, that he has his own flaws. He's very hot-headed. He tends to jump to conclusions, and he always seems to see himself as the perpetual good guy in all things, even when he not always is. Which I think is great. Like, they don't try and destroy the original characters. They allow them to have flaws, but flaws that make sense for those characters. I think once he kind of realizes that, Johnny and I cannot teach together at the same dojo. Like, it works a lot better if we have our own spaces and we do our own things, but we still kind of work together, but separately.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that
separate but equal.
Yeah, separate but equal. And there's sort of the idea that, for all that Mr. Miyagi gave him and for how good that all worked, it doesn't apply to every situation.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do need there. Well, it's kind of like what Johnny says at the end when he's sort of giving the, strike first, strike fast, no mercy thing. And he says, no mercy. That's the hardest one to understand. And it doesn't mean like you literally show them no mercy. It just means that sometimes you have to be mean in a fight situation because your opponent's mean and they're going to destroy you if you don't stop being such a goody two shoes about things.
Benevolent. Don't
yeah,
be too benevolent.
Yeah, don't be too benevolent. So yeah, I think like finally the pin drop for Daniel, and also just at the end where he comes out in a Cobra Kai gi, and just the pep talk he gives to Johnny at the end is
Yeah, I was gonna pick up on
Hang
that
on.
one.
I just really quick because I don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
ever seen this, but Pat's seen this. Danny in the Cobra Kai gi was very much John Cena in the NWO T-shirt moment for me. I was like, oh my. If you got nothing else, Dave, I do want to move on to Pat. So real quick.
yeah,
anything?
yeah.
Okay, Pat, your thoughts on Danny's arc?
It almost didn't do him a lot of favors in several seasons.
Mhm.
We talked about the end of season 5 where he needed that win in that fight against Kreese maybe more than anybody needed to win in the series at that point had, because it's constant deconstruction of a guy who came from such humble beginnings, kind of forgetting all about that now that he's living this fast-paced, rich neighborhood country club lifestyle, and kind of got disconnected from that,
Mhm.
and has to have these grounded characters kind of snap him back to reality of the way things are. And then, sure enough, I don't know whether he has some kind of personality disorder that went undiagnosed or what have you. Shit cans all of it and reverts back to, no, it's just me. This is how this goes from now on. Whether it's an ego trip thing that now as an adult he has these things that he didn't have as a kid that he got no respect for, who knows? But again, seeing him fall into the same traps and tropes in season 6, aforementioned Dog Cage, but then finally relenting and being like, you got to do this your way. We needed him just to shut up, let Johnny do things his way, encourage him in the way Johnny needed.
Yep.
So that Daniel can finally fully grasp the idea of your right way is not my right way, but they can both be the right way just for us individually.
Yeah. Andrew, Danny, and then we're gonna get into Johnny and Take It Home, Baby Dolls.
Yeah, I think Pat and Dave have covered it really, really well. I think
Mhm.
kind of on some level, like to me, the summation of his whole arc is that pep talk between the 2 rounds, where at that point he says, beyond anything else, and beyond the mystery Miyagi and the CGI return of Miyagi, which was interesting. I don't mind it. I mean, the de-aging resurrection thing's weird, but him going back and understanding that he cannot talk. One of his, I think, obviously one of the challenges of this show between the characters has been communication.
Mhm.
They're saying the same things past each other, and that's really one of the first times he figured out how to talk to Johnny and say, and just get it through to him. What gear are you wearing? Who do you respond? Who do you fight for? What do you believe in? And give him that reinforcement that he needed at that moment. And as again, there's a lot of fuck yeah moments in this.
Mhm.
No fucking mercy. Going back to Robbie and Tori, but also this one, a totally fuck yeah moment, and it totally works.
There are some good inspirational speeches in the last arc of this show.
Yeah,
or this
very
season,
much
I should
so.
say.
All right, so wrapping up our discussion of Cobra Kai, let's talk about Johnny, who this whole thing has been about. One of the things I loved about Johnny's arc was knowing the bit about I've already won, I have family, where we see him start where he is a shattered human being. He's barely an existing human. He is just crawling through life and through his love of Miguel, his love of Carmen, his reinventing himself as a sensei, through all the trials and tribulations. He has had such growth. William Zabka, it's unfortunate he has not had a better career than he's had, because I think because he got tarred with that movie and some other things, he didn't get quite the opportunities that he should have. Because I actually think he's got a lot of pathos to his range, to his abilities. I think he does a really, really good job of kind of blossoming, like what I was talking about with Sam, into this fully formed human being. This being that's capable of love, that is capable of mentoring. It's funny because he's not much of a man when this starts. I think we talked to him to one degree or another on this panel and some others that have come along the way, because he was so anachronistic to what we're used to in lead men in fiction.
We
right
called him
now.
the analog man.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. We did call him the analog man. And so we sort of forgive a lot of his, foibles because he's so different. He's such a refreshing change from the soy boys of current fiction. And now he's so much more than that. Now he's this fully formed, almost ideal man, I think. His final speech in the dojo about,
Yeah.
I'm going to be hard on you, but it's going to be worth it, and it's going to be no more than you can handle. And then he looks at the kid with the glasses and goes, please get different glasses. Woof. There's still enough of him in there that he's still the same guy, but he's a better guy than he's ever been.
Yeah.
And I definitely had, my Luke Skywalker at the end of the second season of Mandalorian moment when he looks at Johnny. He says, "You're all right, LaRusso."
Yep.
Mwah, chef's kiss, Pat. Chef's kiss. Tell me. I know this is really what we've all been waiting for. I'm gonna let the other two guys round this out, but if nothing else, Pat is here to talk glowingly about Johnny.
I mean, just, a character who in a lot of fortunate and unfortunate ways I can relate to along the way. And, he is the star of this show for a reason. Every shortcoming he has in this show, for the most part, is a very realistic shortcoming of things that a lot of people face, especially given the circumstances he's been in. Job market sucks for somebody whose main skill is teaching karate when you're not a karate teacher. So he's doing these odd jobs as a handyman, living in a shitty apartment in a bad part of town, low income, doesn't know where his next meal is coming from. Revisits what he likes to do, but finds it's hard to get that going and started. But then he sees this kid who reminds him of himself, where he remembers what he was like before karate, and decides, you know what, I'm taking this kid under my wing. And the relationship that develops between them, he's got this second chance to be a father to this kid because he screwed up with Robbie. Then gets a chance to get back involved in Robbie's life. And he doesn't do it seamlessly. It's horrible, the transitions. A lot of those scenes are just gut punches to watch.
Oh, yeah. Robbie really gives him the business.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can't say he's wrong for doing it at a certain point because of what's gone on. Being very much on the other end of that shoe at one point in my life. So I get that too. And just seeing this character try to not necessarily become something more. He is who he is, and he never changes who he is at his core. But it's about bringing the good stuff in his core more out to the forefront. That shows that he can be nurturing, he can be coaching, he can do these positive things for himself, but for everybody around him too, and help them. And it's something he's never gotten to experience till this point in his life. And to watch him develop this sensei role, going from just a guy teaching a kid how to punch and kick and defend himself, to mentoring young adults going into their next step of their lives by teaching them lessons without them realizing it. The idea of striking first, going back to that speech that Aisha gave when she changed schools and she took the lesson she learned from Johnny to make a new friend and set herself up at school where she's not getting bullied and everything's okay. To the confidence he instilled in these guys to take chances that they normally wouldn't have. And who knows where their lives would have gone if they wouldn't have put themselves out there and done these things. And to see it get to end where he actually gets to have the final fight to determine the winning dojo.
Yep.
And they do it in a circumstance where, listen, nobody's going to believe at this point that, he's going to beat Louis Tan in a straight up, Sekai Taikai rule style fight like we've seen. So they go to the point system for it in the All Valley tournament, which is at least much more feasible than that. And honestly, if he would have kicked Sensei Wolf's ass, none of us would have complained either in a type of fight like that, because that's where we've gotten to in this show. But the fact that they grounded it with at least a little bit of realism, I think made it even cooler, where it's like, oh man, it builds it up to the viewer. He's really got a shot now. He doesn't have to do this. Okay. And just, again, seeing him get this second chance to be who he could have been if he hadn't lost all those years. It's the story of better late than never.
Yeah.
And I love it.
There's always an opportunity to pull the plane out of the nosedive, Maverick. Andrew, your last thoughts on Mr. Johnny?
Man, I gotta follow up with Pat on this one, and Pat, that was very well said on terms of Johnny's arc. But yeah, I love seeing where this character went, his entire arc. I think even going back to again that great monologue at the end around strike fast, strike hard, no mercy. It was funny after I watched the finale and watched some clips on Facebook. I was getting kind of clips throughout the entire history of Cobra Kai. And they had the clip come up of actually with the first time he met Hawk. and he was going back and he was having that, was calling him the lip and everything like that, and kind of how that character changed. And even though, I mean, again, it's that, that tough reinforcement, even when he had the conversation with the kid with the glasses at the end, it was kind of that same direction, but it also kind of lacked some of that. It was tough, but it also wasn't cruel in the same way that it was to Hawk on some level. And I think it just shows that, again, that change in character. And again, past that end tournament was so satisfying to see him get to hoist that trophy.
All right, David, take me home, baby doll.
It's kind of hard to find too much to say what Andrew and especially Pat have already said. I think they've covered him pretty good, but you do see the journey that Johnny's gone on, and he's become a lot more self-aware in the past season. Like I think my favorite Johnny moment in the last season is on the airplane when the flight attendant's like, "Sir, are you going to be a problem?" He's like, "Honestly, yeah, a little."
when he goes to the flat Earth theory.
Oh yeah. That was after that point, but yeah, that was just kind of like, Johnny kind of knows he's Johnny at that point, and he's he's better than he was, but he still knows it. And at least he kind of can see now when he needs to pull back. But I do like how in the end they did kind of show him finding the positive things that he did get from Cobra Kai and passing them forward. Andrew went back to Hawk. I was thinking of that too when he was talking to the glasses kid, and it was just that sort of idea. Like he starts calling him lip, and he's like, oh, "You can't say that. That's cruel. It'll hurt his feelings." Like, what's that got to do with anything? People are going to call him lip because he has a funny looking lip. If you have a problem with that, get used to it, or do something to distract people from it. And he becomes Hawk, and you just see just the confidence he gets from it. I mean, he goes through a dark place in the middle once Grease takes over, but he gets all right. And it's sort of, I love this idea that they have where they have like Miyagi-Do teaming up with Cobra Kai as sort of, I'm not sure sister dojos is the right term, but yeah, you have more of the soft, more touchy-feely stuff from Miyagi-Do and more of the hard stuff from Cobra Kai, and like that's life. Like sometimes, yes, you need the sensitive, let's talk about our feelings and work things through, and I feel you. And then sometimes you just need look, sometimes life sucks. It's unfair. Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. And there's nothing you can do about everything. So what are you going to do about it? Suck it up, toughen up, and you'll learn how to get through things. And I think that it's nice that they managed to keep that in the show whilst also, again, balancing it with the softer side of things.
Yeah, the reality check of uncomfortable truths that you may not want to acknowledge, and some people are okay with telling people that you don't have to acknowledge, but not everybody's going to play that way in the world.
And you see the people that try and run from the harshness of the world and try not to fortify themselves against it, and they're in a really bad place.
Yeah.
Boy, I could talk for an hour about that, but I won't.
That would be. I don't want to go.
I understand, but yeah, it was like that door opened, and I'm like, I'm not walking through it, but I see you.
I think we dealt with that as much as we need to.
Next week on Neurodivergent.
I was actually thinking of starting another podcast just to cover all the side topics we skip over because we don't have time, but.
What got cut? The Rattledge edition.
Yeah, right, I was thinking of calling it Blackjack and Hookers, actually.
Perfect. All right, Andrew, anything else you want to talk about? I know we're a little over where I said we were going to be, but it wouldn't be a Rattledge and Broadcasting show if we didn't discuss Captain America's Shield, so more on that next week.
Oh, God, we have that again.
But no, in all seriousness, I've led the discussion as far as I'm going to lead it, but I don't want to miss anything that you thought was important, so anything that you want to discuss, or are you good to go?
You know what? Thoroughly enjoyed the show. I kind of finished watching it. It's like, you know what? I think I'm going to start rewatching this with the kids now because I don't think they've actually seen the original Karate Kid movies yet. And tell you the truth, I haven't really paid as much attention to Karate Kid 3, so I'm going to have to give that a watch. And I'm actually kind of shocked. We're an hour and 30 into this, and I'm surprised that I'm bringing up the Mike Barnes cameos before Pat did. Because those were great. Other thing I'll show you guys said already, Amanda's probably one of the best characters in this entire series. I am married to a very long-suffering martial arts widow, and it is like she does some of her jokes about the whole martial arts lifestyle thing are so on point that it works very, very well. But yeah,
If
thoroughly
every
enjoyed the series, and I've enjoyed talking about it with you guys as well.
if every wife were as good as Danny's wife, this would be a much happier Earth. Pat, any last words on this before we go?
Thoroughly enjoyed this show. I haven't seen a show that I got such reactions from people who are not martial artists, who grew fond of watching karate and expanded out of it to watch stuff like Karate Combat, show more of an interest in the UFC and combat sports. And I think if nothing else, if it's not just the legacy it had for Karate Kid fans, I think the legacy of the show is going to be introducing a lot of kids in a positive way to karate and perhaps further martial arts, the way, Power Rangers did in the 90s.
Yep.
And it could be a potential, second renaissance. And I hope it is for the sport of karate and for the martial arts as a whole. And it really made people fall in love with it in a different kind of way. And I'm all for anytime that happens, as opposed to everything else I've gushed over in the past 5 seasons.
All right, Big Daddy. Take me home, baby doll. You get the final word here, and we're getting we're out.
Sweet. For as much as this final season did feel like they kind of, it would have been better if maybe they'd shaved a few episodes off of it. It did. I've enjoyed this show. I'm so happy that it finished strong. It is time for it to end. Like I don't want a season 7. This is just, it's great. No more. We're like let this ground lie fallow for quite some time.
I already saw the AI generated image of Kreese crawling out of the surf.
I don't know if I would do
T1000 style, right?
I would pawn this off on Alexis if they got a season 8 out of it or season 7 out of this. I would be fucking done. Like, no more.
But I think like you could teach a course with this show about how to do like a legacy revival of an old property. Like I love how they were so respectful of everything that came before, but they didn't like deify anything from it. Like I say, like Johnny and Daniel, they both have their own perspective on things. They both have their own benefits, their own flaws, their own arcs. Like it doesn't feel like they have to tear down the old characters to make us like the new characters. The new characters I thought were really well done, and like they did a great job of having like all sorts of different kids from different walks of life and backgrounds, and just treating them all as solid, fully rounded characters. And that again, I really thought was an excellent example of how to do this right. I mean, they even the original actors they brought back, like Zabka of course was great, but so was Ralph Macchio was good, and Kreese, blanking on John Cove or anyway, it was quite. Thank you. It was amazing to see just like how good those guys were able to just like slip back. Also Terry Silver, I don't know the actor's name, but he was great. Not as scenery chewing as he was in the original film, but still.
He's a pretty scenery chewing, but in the best ways possible.
He is not chewing scenery in this season like he chewed it in the season prior.
The 2 seasons prior.
Yeah, he was ridiculous in everyone. He was definitely much more subdued. He wasn't quite William S. Burroughs the way fucking Martin Cove was. I don't know what direction he was given. Here, sniff this ether. Now go perform. All right. Go ahead, Dave.
No, that's good. So I just really solid, really well done. I'm glad I watched it. I mean, one of my few complaints is like Hilary Swank didn't show up, and that's just because that's like the only thing they did not mine from prior Karate Kid mythology.
Yeah, I was okay with that.
I know, but like they have mined every film, every music video, every comedy sketch, every video game, and
Rocky
Saturday morning
III.
Cartoon.
Well, they could have had Robbie sent to a boarding school, and that boarding school was run by Colonel Dugan from the next Karate Kid. And
yes.
Ironside
is always good.
True. Yeah. Like I'm not saying like make it a big thing. Like just like okay, like we checked that box too. It was like the only box we didn't check other than like Will Smith's kid. But apparently we're getting a movie now with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio. So we'll see. But
it's the only good part of that 2012 movie. So I'll take it.
Yeah, but I digress. But like I wouldn't even be upset if like in like 20 years from now we did like another show with like this generation of characters and see where they are, what's Tori and Miguel doing and Sam in like 20 years, and what things happen to them. Like I thought the characters were so good that they could even go forward in time, but like
I don't
not
wanna
next year.
I don't want to spark a debate, but let me tell you how I don't ever want to see any of these characters again.
Okay.
Here's the only reason why, and we're going to end with this. If you have to start a new show or a movie, or you have to see them, you have to put them under duress of some kind, or there is no story. Nobody can be successful. You don't quite have to be wanting to die on a beach and getting punched out by Fleabag. You don't have to be that bad, but you do have to be in some form of things can't have worked out for you, or there is no story. And here's the thing. And again, it's so different than modern fiction. Everyone had a happy ending that needed a happy ending. I don't want it ruined. I don't want to see these characters anymore. I want to know that Tori and Robbie, lived forever doing karate stuff, and they were happily ever after. And and Johnny was a giant success doing Cobra Kai, and Danny continued to be the best dad he could, and everyone just had a happy life. Can't we just have joy and happiness?
I'm completely happy with not revisiting most of these characters ever again, and going with that where it's like they all happy.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. I was just saying, like, the show is so good, the characters are so well developed that if they did do more in the future, I would be okay with that. But I'm also perfectly okay with this being the end, and let's just never do any more Karate Kid stuff ever. Like, we're done.
Let us never speak of the Cobra Kai again. All right. So another one in the books, another Radulich and Broadcasting Network TV show finally finished. From soup to nuts. It didn't die in the culling of 2022. We finished it. I'm so proud of us. With that said, speaking of Alexis, we did The Bear season 2 on Wednesday. She hosted Damn You Hollywood on Monday, and it's still standing. It has not been burnt to the ground. She had the unholy trio.
It's the unholy trinity, but go ahead.
Whatever. Yeah. The unholy threesome of Robert, Alexis, and Jason Teasley, and they reviewed The Monkey.
I forgot the fundamental rule of the network: never correct Mark.
Yup. I'm only gonna make it worse. Anyway, it's a good review. It's not quite as meandering as some of the other ones she's hosted, so give it a listen. Apparently, The Monkey is pretty good if you like people being dismembered in funny ways. So there's that. This Sunday, I am watching Revolution, so there is no podcast.
Ugh.
But Monday, shut up. But Monday is Mickey 17. That is myself and Robert. No guest as near as I can tell. Alexis does not have a show as near as I can tell. Wednesday, however, myself and Harry Broadhurst have another Indie-Siders. That'll go late. That'll be starting at 11 o'clock at night, and we're going to review AEW Revolution, and I'm sure we will address Elimination Chamber as well as that happened. Thursday, oh, I'm not done with you yet, Andrew Graham, not by a long shot. We've got season 3 of The West Wing, of which I am halfway through. And that is it for next week. The next time Pat will be with us is me and him decided we're doing a Whiskey Rebellion for the movie Havoc on Netflix, starring Tom Hardy. And Pat's got all kinds of fun bric-a-brac he wants to do there, which is why it's not, an on trial or Damn You Hollywood or a triple feature.
Plenty of gimmickry.
Yes, it's a Whiskey Rebellion because it's a review and it's a gimmick and it's a cage match and it's a hoo-ha and a what you call it. So it'll be fantastic.
Until that movie might actually have a cage match in it.
That's right. God damn it, pal. Let's see. David, I don't know when you're coming back. maybe
yeah, I would like to do Thunderbolts this year. Strange New Worlds, whenever that comes out, I think that's the surest one.
That coming out?
I don't think they've said yet.
Yeah, it's still filming from what I understand. So probably maybe the summer or the fall.
They finished season 3. Like I think they're on season 4 now. Apparently, like they've got it signed up. They're going to do all 5 seasons, and then that'll be the end of that. So that's
cool.
That's in the bag. I'm thinking of starting into Daredevil Born Again. So I assume we're going to talk about that at some point. So I might be on that.
I was going to say, yeah, Alexis will be hosting a review of Daredevil Born Again. Have at it, people.
Yeah, and/or season 2.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
David, I'll jump on Thunderbolts with you.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that should be. That looks like fun.
I have to pencil that in before the show ends tonight. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us here on TV Party tonight for the Punchy Pugilist. I haven't called you that in a while. David, who are you? Pat.
Pat.
Same hair font. It's fine.
For Daddy's father. Oh my God, I'm so tired. David Wright, and for Andrew Graham of no silly nicknames, be well, be safe, and behave.